Hey, Net Builders, thanks for joining us again for another episode. We have another great guest on today, Mark Lefebvre. He is going to talk to us about a topic that I think is not covered enough, but authoring, especially with the opening of Kindle and Audible, where people are able to be authors easier. I think that his knowledge and the value that he brings will help shed some light on this difficult industry to traverse. So it's all on you, Mark.
No, it's all on me. Well, thanks for having me here. This is something I never get tired of talking about because I think I've been a writer. I wanted to be a writer my entire life. I started sending stories out when I was 15 years old, and I've worked in the book industry since 1992, which is the same year that I sold my first story in 92, and I started working in the book industry then. And one of the things I love to talk to authors about is I know we're passionate about writing and we have stories we want to share, whether we write nonfiction books about how to do something that you know how to do, or whether it's a story you want to share to just take people away, beach reads, whatever it is, something fun, inspiring. We get passionate about our stories and we love telling stories and we love sharing. But one of the things authors really don't necessarily focus on is that writing and publishing is a business. Bookstores are a business. Libraries are a business. Kindle, Audible, all those places online are all businesses. And so, yes, we have a product we're passionate about. We have stories we want to share with passion and enthusiasm, but it's also a business, and it's easy to lose sight of that. And so I love to remind authors of, when you're thinking about, obviously they often think about marketing. How can I market my book?
Yeah.
One of the first things I come back to is, who specifically is your book for? Just like in any product, right? Yeah, I know it's not a widget. It's a really cool thing. It's a thing you can hold in your hands and touch and feel, or if it's on a e-reading device, whatever. It's still a product that solves a problem for someone. What problem does your book solve? Whether that's, beach read, escape. I love good mysteries. I want to read a good, science fiction novel, whatever it is, or I'm going to teach someone how to do something that I know how to do, and focusing on who those people are and how your book solves that problem for them. That's the first step. I think in terms of understanding your market and all the things that readers or writers are really excited to discuss.
Definitely, definitely. It's interesting that you bring that up because I personally I've never thought of it as it really is a product. Like
Yeah.
you really never think about it. And I love books. I love books and all genres. R.A. Salvatore is one of my favorite because I'm a big geek.
Yeah,
And
of course. Yeah.
it's all right.
Fantasy novels, yeah. But that solves a problem for you because you're looking for a great adventure, right? To enjoy, just like other adventures you've read, and R.A. Salvatore is a great. So when you walk into a bookstore or library or whatever, or even when you're looking at the Amazon algorithms, if you're a customer there,
Mhm.
places like that, or even Google online bookstore and stuff like that, they're going to know, oh, RJ's read these books and he's loved them. Therefore, he would probably love these other ones.
Mm.
And that's your job as a writer, whether you're traditionally published, like R.A. Salvatore, or whether you're self-published, whether you've done it yourself. You still have to understand, okay, RJ loves this kind of book. Therefore, he'll also likely enjoy these kinds of books. That's what booksellers do. My favorite job when I worked in a bookstore, my favorite job was someone would come in and say, "I'm looking for something to read this weekend. I'm whatever. I just want to relax on the beach or sit in my hammock or sit on my back deck or whatever. It's just going to be a great weekend. I want to sit in the sun and enjoy a good read." Well, great. We have lots of great books here. Like a small bookstore, I'd have 10,000 titles, or when I worked at a large store, it's like we have 100,000 books here. What was the last book you read that you loved? That kind of thing. Any sort of understanding of what it is you liked about the book will help me figure out what that next great read for you could be. And I think that's our job as authors, and even if we are publishing, right? How
Yeah.
do we figure out what that next book should be for you? And is my book right for you? So it's a critical question. Just like you walk into Home Depot and you're building a deck, they ask you the quote, well, what do you need? I need these tools, I need these materials, I need these, I need components to connect things together. That's the same sort of thing, but we always think about books with passion and enthusiasm, right? Like when you think about the R.A. Salvatore and how and the joy you've gotten out of reading them, you're thinking about them with passion rather than I guess that fundamental business element. And I get it, but I think as authors we need to remember the function that the book plays in someone's life.
Perfect. Perfect. Well said. Well said. So now we have all of this crazy stuff like Kindle and everything out now where people can self-publish.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember when I was younger, I had this huge, thick, it was like a directory of all the publishing companies, and it told the submissions, requirements, guidelines, and stuff. I can't remember the book.
Writer's Market. I have a bunch of them. Yeah, right behind me on the bookshelves. The old ones. I used to. Yeah, you get them once a year, and you figure out what publishers to send things to. And
oh man, I was gonna be an author. I wrote so much stuff. I knew I was gonna be an author. I'm still mad that I didn't become one, but you know, but
not too late, my friend. It's not too late. You've got stories you want to share. Here's the thing. There's never been a better time to be a writer, because in the day when you and I started, right, we would get Writer's Market magazine or the Novel and Short Story Writer's Guide. They had different versions, right? They had science fiction and fantasy Writer's Market. I think I have, yeah, right here. You know, science fiction and fantasy Writer's Market, where I would look up and I would find all these different markets I could send my science fiction stories to, right? But now you can create a direct account with Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing. You can create a direct account with Google Play, Partner Book Center, Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Canadian ebook retailer. Or you can use a distributor like Draft to Digital, which will allow you to convert that Word document to an EPUB for free. And you can publish it, and your book can be available in 170 countries around the world.
Might have to go for it.
The challenge is we've given authors the ability to, hey, here, push some buttons and you can publish your book. But we have to make sure that we ensure authors understand it's best to make sure your work has been cleaned up and edited before you put it out there, because people are going to judge you. And speaking of judging, they're also going to judge you by the covers. And I learned that the hard way. I mean, I've released, I've got, well, 30 odd books that are out there, both traditionally published and self-published. And I've made the mistake where I've started with a cover on one of the ones I've done myself that I thought it was pretty good. It was a pretty good cover, but it didn't appeal to the right audience. And so it was only after the fact that I realized that, well, you know, it's because I can get a really good cover from a cover designer I work with for $150. And that difference of that investment suddenly means the book appeals to the right audience.
Wow.
As opposed to my original one, which was a nice cover, but it didn't appeal to the right audience, so the wrong people were reading it. And so I think, along with the ability to self-publish, I think authors should take the care to understand the business, but also understand that aspect of the people will judge your book within a split second when they see the cover online.
And it's ironic because there's a saying, don't judge a book by its cover.
We do it all. I mean, we do it all the time, right? We make judgments on, but so when I worked as a bookseller, and I used to look through catalogs to decide what books were going to be carried in my store. And even when I worked for online bookstores that decide what books are going to be featured on the front pages, there's thousands and thousands of titles, and you're kind of like, it's like Tinder. You're going left, swipe, left, left, left. Oh, right. I think that's a good one. Left, right. And they are, I've seen the merchandisers who decide these things. They make a decision within a split second and again, it's a gut instinct. You're like, or if I'm looking for science fiction novels or fantasy novels, if I see a dragon on the cover, it's probably going to be a fantasy. But if I see a spaceship and I'm looking for fantasy, well, I'm not like, it may not be that, you know, spaceships are cool, but not my kind of read. So I'm going to go like that. It's the same thing. If you're looking for romance, you're looking for certain styles. And that's the challenge, is it could be a good cover. It might just not be a good cover for the right people.
Gotcha. Back to the marketing.
People do make those, unfortunately, they do make those snap decisions. So you've got usually one chance to make a really good impression as an author.
Wow. That's a lot to put on the shoulder, like especially for the cover designer, like you are literally the face of my book.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of pressure
It's a
there.
lot of responsibility, but you're talking to entrepreneurs who are running businesses, and I want to remind authors that's exactly what you're doing too, right? They put a lot into product design, right? When they decide, when Nike comes up with their logo, when any company comes up with any of their branding, that's very much what they're thinking about. What does this make you think about? I was talking to someone recently who came up with the name PayPal for a company, right? Like well, we needed it to be friendly, but denote that it was going to be a transaction of sorts. And
Oh,
that's where, so when you hear PayPal, like what is it? Like, well, friendly, pal, pay,
that
okay,
makes sense.
works, right? That's the kind of a lot of work went into that to come up with something so simple. And there's the same thing when you look at a cover, you're like, oh, that looks like a great book.
No, definitely. And that really, I guess we take that for granted because I really never thought about that, like how much work goes into, each piece
Yeah.
of literature. Like, so I wanted to ask
Look
you,
at net builders behind you. You put a lot of thought and effort into that. Probably you relied on a team of people. Maybe you're getting some people's perspective, and then you came up with net builders, right?
definitely,
There you go.
definitely. Right. You right on the head. Hit the nail right on the head. But so with the self-publishing going on, and you've done traditional published books and self-publishing.
Yeah.
So with traditional publishing, you have a publishing company, you have I think a promoter, you have
Sometimes.
yeah, well, but you also have, you also have a commission split between the publishing company,
Right.
because they did the work, the distribution, you
Yeah.
did the writing. So I imagine that they can get the word out about your book a lot faster than you would do self-publishing. So what do you recommend for people just starting out?
Well, it depends on what you're wanting to sell. So I'll be honest with you. I make most of my money from traditional publishing on print books, and most of my money from self-publishing on ebooks. So so I always think about when I'm thinking about whether I'm going to pitch a book to a publisher or I'm going to self-publish it is, do I want this to be in bookstores, and do I want that to sell as a physical book? In which case, and I'll give you a logistical example. So
Okay.
with you're not going to make huge royalties as a beginning author unless you just blow their minds with a manuscript where they have to give you $1 million advance. You're going to get a tiny advance, and you'll probably get 8% of the proceeds. So for example, one of my traditionally published books sells for $25, and I get 8% every time it sells, right? Which means that's about $2 every time this print book. And that's because the print book has to go through a warehouse, it has to go through the bookstore, everyone's getting their cut. So at the end of the day, the cut I get is 8%. And I
Okay.
get a check once a year for that 8% with a 30% withholding charge in case there's returns. So the publisher still hangs. So for every $100 they pay me, I only get 70, they keep 30 till next year.
Gotcha.
With my
Okay.
self-published books, I can have a self-published ebook sell for $4.99, $5, and I'll make $3. I'll make about 70%, $3.50. Let's say, I'm not good at doing the math in my head, but I make $1.50 more selling it at a quarter or less of the price, and I get paid every month from Amazon and Kobo and Apple and all the different places that distribute my book,
Mm,
and I sell a lot more of those. So for example, for the price of one of my print books, you can buy 4 of my ebooks for the same price, and I make significantly more money, and I get it in my directly deposited into my bank account. So
gotcha.
there's it's not an either or in my case. It's more of a combination effort. So some of my books, I do true ghost story books, for example, and those are ones that haunted hospitals and spooky Sudbury and creepy capital. These are about places. So creepy capital is Ottawa, Canada's capital city, or spooky Sudbury, the city I grew up in. And those people want to have as a souvenir. They want a physical copy of the book.
Mm,
Maybe they've gone on a local ghost walk, like Haunted Hamilton Ghost Walk, and they want the book Haunted Hamilton, right? Those are fine, and they sell really well in bookstores and places like that. My thriller, A Canadian Werewolf in New York, yeah, I sell print copies because it's print on demand and they're available on Amazon and all, like Barnes and Noble, all the online retailers. But I sell a lot more of the ebook for $4.99. And people just want to read and they want to enjoy, they want to escape into this urban fantasy world, have a good time with the werewolf guy who's crime fighting superhero, and bam, they go along. And I can also, here's the other thing, with a publisher, I'm limited to usually to one book a year with them because they only have room in their catalog, because they have to have an editor assigned to it. That I do get a publicist usually for about 30 days who does some publicity, but I'm not Stephen King, so they're not going to invest that much in me. They'll maybe get me on a couple radio programs, but I also can get myself on radio programs because I've learned about the business of writing and publishing, right? I know how to pitch.
Definitely.
But I can get those one book a year with that publisher, but with my Canadian Werewolf series, I can publish 2 or 3 books a year, provided I've got the time to get the writing done, that I've got editors booked that can get the manuscript back to me in a good time. My cover designer's already, I've got the next book that's coming out in December, so I got the cover from him back in February. I posted it as a pre-order. It's up for the end of December. I'm working on the manuscript now. I'm getting it to my editor in July so I can have it back, doing the rewrites in August so I can get it to the narrator who's going to read it. Again, I'm self-publishing the audiobook. So by December, everything's ready to go. And what I can potentially do is in October, I can start sending out the advanced copies, just like a publisher would do, so I can get early reviews. So again, you got to remember, I'm self-publishing, but I'm also taking the responsibility of all those things the publisher's done, because I'm taking 70%. I'm taking most of the margin for myself. I'm taking all the responsibility, but I'm getting all the margin.
Yes.
And what I look at it is, I look at it like a publisher does, as an investment. How many books do I have to sell to earn back the money I invested in this book? And those are again, it's not as fun to think about. It's like, yeah, I wrote a story. But it's kind of critical if an author wants to have a successful career as an author.
But it's just like, as you said, with any new product that you create, all of that work comes with it. I mean, putting it together, figuring out how to wrap it in a pretty bow, and the market, yeah, you're right. So as you should get the 70% profit.
Well, I'll give you an example. This is an example of the latest book novel. So this is a self-published book, Fear and Longing in Los Angeles. It's my Canadian Werewolf series. That's the paperback. Here's the hardcover version. It's also available in ebook and audiobook format. And hopefully, if
that cover looks amazing.
I think my cover designer's done a nice job.
Yeah, that cover looks amazing.
Yeah, I think it can stand on the shelf beside any traditionally published book, and you can't tell, and people don't care. All they want is a good book that they're going to enjoy. And I think I'll give you a perfect example. If I can show you the original cover for the Canadian Werewolf book series. This was the original cover, which is not ugly. It's not horrible.
No, but it grab your attention. It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't look like an urban fantasy. When I go to, and I don't have a copy of the Canadian Werewolf handy, but if I go to, the Canadian Werewolf looks more like this than this. This looks more literary. It's not really like whatever. It looks like New York City, but this tells you, okay, there's a werewolf in this.
Yes.
Right. And so that's an example of, it's not a horror. I don't think it's a horrible cover. It just doesn't appeal to the right audience. An urban fantasy reader is not going to look at the first one and go, oh yeah, like you like fantasy, so you may be interested in something like that. Whereas a romance reader is not going to like either one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So your personal preference, I have to ask, because it's a for me in my life, it's an age-old question. I have common debates that probably go into arguments with people.
Yeah.
Hardback or ebook. Me personally, I cannot read an entire book on a computer screen or Kindle or anything. I don't know why. I love holding a book, flipping pages. I don't know why.
I'm a book nerd. I love books. I'm surrounded by books. There's more, I'm skulls and books. Like books here. There's books in front of me on the shelf. There's a bookshelf over there you can't see, and another one over here you can't see. There's a bookshelf in almost every room of our house, even our bar downstairs that we have, like, converted the living room to a mini bar. There's a library because we have so many books, we have to have books in every room. So I love books. However, I do love, and I use Kobo, which is Canada's answer to Kindle.
Okay.
And on my Kobo reader, which is a waterproof reader, I can have 1,000 books on my Kobo. So when I'm traveling, I slip it in my laptop bag, and I can easily pick up and sit at a bar, for example, back, post-pandemic days, spill a drink on it. Who cares? It's fine. Where if I did that on a book, it would be damaged permanently. Or just wipe it off. And I can make any book large print. So if I don't have my reading glasses with me, any book is large print for me. And it's not a computer screen when you have a proper e-ink device. It's actually easier on your eyes than paper. And my partner's sleeping. She wants to go to sleep. I can read, and there's a built-in light, and it's not backlit like a computer, and I can put it to 10%, and I don't even need to have a light on. I can sit there and read, but I can also read the same book on my ebook in direct sunlight because it's not an iPad.
Are you trying to convert me?
No, I'm just saying, for me, the convenience of being able to have access to books I want to read wherever I am. Now, I listen to audiobooks too. I listen to a lot of books. So if I'm out for a run or going for a walk or doing yard work, I've got the headphone right here. I plug it in and I'm listening to an audiobook. If I'm, reading in bed, I usually read on my e-reading device. And sometimes if I'm reading in a nice comfy chair, there is nothing like the feel of a book. So for me, I'm a book nerd. I'll take them any way I can get them. I love them all. But what I do love about ebooks is the convenience. So for example, you and I talk about a book. All right, Salvatore has this new book. It's got to get out. I can pick up my phone, open up the app for Libby, which is connected to my local library, and I can have it and start reading it in 2 minutes. Or on Kobo or on Kindle or whatever. Whereas if you wanted the physical, you're like, well, I'm going to have to order it. And even if it ships in 24 hours,
still got to wait.
Still got to wait. Where I could dig into that book right now, baby.
I hear you. All right. So yeah, you brought up some really good points. I really don't have any arguments that can really stand up to anything you said. So I'm just going to have to concede for now.
You can't write in the margins. You can't fold the pages down, right? But here's the thing. I've got my Kobo at my bedside. If I've forgotten my Kobo, it's synced in the cloud. If I'm out at the grocery store and I want to read the next chapter, I open up my phone on the Kobo app. It's already synced to where I finished reading, and I can read for 5 minutes while I'm waiting in line.
Wow.
So, I mean, again, I remember when the Harry Potter books first came out, they did not exist in ebook. And I remember I was on a flight, and it was one of the flights where you don't want to pack a bag. You just want to have carry-on, right? Because it's faster. The book was like, 6 inches thick. I couldn't fit that. That would have been bigger than my bag. It wasn't available in audiobook at the time, and it wasn't available in ebook. So I couldn't take the whatever book in the Harry Potter series it was. I picked a different book that I could get on my Kobo reader and I could enjoy and go, oh, look, I have 1,000 books right here.
Yeah, Harry lost that battle.
Although I'm sure J.K. Rowling's doing okay for herself, but but it was a thing where I thought, well, why isn't this available in the format I want to read it in?
Yeah, fair enough. So what's your, I know I'm off the business topic, but I love books too. So I'm sorry. I love talking.
It's okay. I can talk books all day too.
So what is your favorite book to movie?
Oh, that's a great question. Book to movie. You know what? I honestly think this isn't a high literary standard, but Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, which was turned into Die Hard. That was a brilliant adaptation, and I actually think the movie was better than the book in many ways, because the book, John McClane is made up for the movie. But I've read the book multiple times. I think it's a great book, but it's an even better movie, and it's one of the examples where I think, okay. Sorry, dog barking in the background.
He likes Die Hard too.
Yeah, I think a dog just walked by the front door. But the sequel, Die Hard 2, was based on a completely different book. Was it Walter? I'm trying to remember. Walter Wager, called 22 Minutes. Wow. And that's an example where the script writing for Die Hard 2 is like 1,000 times better than the book it was based on, which is a completely independent book with a different character.
That I did not know.
Yeah, yeah, I love the trivia associated with adaptations and stuff, because typically you can't, right? A book is a book is 8 to 12 hours of entertainment, and a movie is 2 hours. So there's no way you could possibly ever compare them. Even when you do The Stand
Oh.
miniseries based on 1,000-page book, you're missing everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or It was made into two really long movies, or The Godfather, or any of those things. They still can't hold up to the book because so much gets left out.
Mm-hmm.
But
Definitely
in a case,
backstories, details.
yeah, yeah, but I think Die Hard may be an example of an adaptation that's way better. Or in the case of a friend of mine had a horror story recently that's going to be turned into a movie. It was a horror story that was like, 20 pages turned into a 2 hour movie. Now that's probably going to be a good adaptation.
Wow.
Nothing's going to get left out. Maybe things will be added.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
Think about Philip K. Dick. A lot of the movies like Blade Runner, Minority Report, and Total Recall were based on short stories by Philip K. Dick, and those were decent adaptations because you're not losing anything; you're actually gaining something. Anyway, that's the way I like to look at adaptations.
No, it's actually a very good way. I didn't really think of it that way, actually. Have you ever done any screenplay writing?
I have actually converted one of my short stories to a screenplay. I had a friend who was needing a project for college, and he wanted to do something. So I took one of my scripts, which is basically, it takes place at a graveyard on Halloween where this dead guy comes back and tries to bum a cigarette off his buddy because it's been so long since he smoked. Because he's been in the grave for 6 months. It's kind of like this cheeky little dark humor tale. And I turned it into a screenplay for him. He never used it, but I've never done anything with it. So
That's pretty
yeah,
cool, actually. That's
yeah.
actually pretty cool. So in the screenplay, so I there's a lot of people who want to write for
Hollywood.
screen, yeah,
Yeah.
for Hollywood, but it's so much. I think from what I hear, it's a lot easier now to break into Netflix and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
how does
Yeah.
that go?
Well, it's still a lot of work, because here's the problem is a lot of books get optioned. A dear friend of mine has just re-signed an option with David Heckel, who was the director for Saw 5,
Okay.
his horror novel. This is the fifth time that they've re-optioned it. Now it's been optioned. It's for another 2 or 3 years in the hopes that they get the funding to actually make it. So a lot of books get optioned. They don't get turned into films. Good friend of mine, Canadian science fiction writer Robert J. Sawyer, had one of his novels optioned to be turned into Flash Forward TV series on ABC. I don't know if you remember that from a few years back.
Oh, actually, that sounds very familiar.
Joseph Fiennes and was one of the main characters in that. And a dear friend of mine from my college days just had and she focused on, because she wrote plays back in university, and she's did screenplays, not novels. She wrote screenplays, and her screenplay Oxygen premiered this month on Netflix. Netflix France actually bought it, so it was produced in French, even though she wrote it in English.
Wow.
And it was a brilliant this woman wakes up basically, and the actress, the way they pulled it off is amazing. She wakes up in a digital coffin basically, and is trying to get out, and is talking to the computer. So it's kind of like this almost like that the computer from the 2001 A Space Odyssey talking to Dave, right? And so she's trying to talk to the computer. She doesn't remember who she is, and she's trying to figure out how to get out of this, basically this coffin shaped box that she's been trapped in. It's really a phenomenal process. Hugh Howie is a self-published author, science fiction author, who I've known for a long time. Now, he was one of the first authors to make seven figures from his self-published book Wool,
Wow.
which is a post-apocalyptic book. It got optioned by Ridley Scott 6 years ago or 7 years ago, like quite a while ago. I remember when he got optioned by Ridley Scott. He just announced in the last couple of weeks, Apple and AMS have teamed up, and they're releasing Wool from this self-published author as a series, as a TV series,
Wow.
a streaming TV series. And it's amazing. Like, I remember Hugh, when it got optioned by Ridley Scott 6, 7 years ago, I remember him going, yeah, that's great. I got some money for the option, but I doubt a movie will ever get made. And it was so cool to see just in the last few weeks. He announced that finally, he's like, after years, I can finally announce that it's getting made. And so, I don't know when this episode is going to air, but well, it's going to be up in the future anyways. You may be able to go and look for on AMS or Apple. You may find Wool, the TV series by Hugh Howie. Again, one of the first self-publishing guys to make 6-7 figures from a $5 ebook. That's how we got to start.
So as far as books go, what do we have to look forward from in the future from you?
Well, I'm working on Fright Night's Big City, which is the next book in my Canadian Werewolf series. I'm working on that now. I'm actually working on The Relaxed Author, which is a book for authors. It's in my series, Stark Publishing Solutions. So Wide for the Wind was my most recent book about publishing your books in all ways and formats to make money. And yeah, so there's always going to be something new coming out for me. Every few months, I've got something new in the works because I got a lot of stuff that I'm chipping away at.
Do we ever experience writer's block?
I don't have time for writer's block, and I'll tell you this: if I don't believe in writer's block, it won't believe in me.
I like that. That's great. That's some good advice right there.
Yeah, a surgeon doesn't say, "Hey, yeah, I've got surgeon block," or a plumber doesn't go, "I got." Well, they have blood. They deal with blockage all the time, but they don't say, "Well, I don't feel like it today." No, they get in there, they get their job done, right? The same thing as you're a writer, you get in there, you get your job done.
I love that. That is the greatest mindset to have at that. I love it. Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's business. And I think that's great. I love your entire perspective on this and the value you brought today, because you definitely explained, hey, this is a business. It's just like any other product. You sit, you work on it. You don't just write a book and then all of a sudden you're an author, a highly famed and published author. It takes so much work behind it, and authors have to treat it like a business because it is a business. So thank you.
You nailed it.
Thank you for explaining that. So how can we get in touch with you?
You can find me everywhere online, all the places at markleslie.ca. I don't request people try to spell my last name, so markleslie.ca.
Okay. Gotcha. And are all your books available there?
Yeah, there's links to the places where you can get them in ebook, in print, or audio. Yeah.
Outstanding. I'm definitely gonna be getting me one of those today. I will try it in ebook. I'm gonna actually sit down and read it in ebook, but if not, I'm gonna get my actual hard copy.
Awesome.
I appreciate you being here today, Mark. It's been a pleasure. The value that you have provided today is amazing. Very amazing.
Thank you, RJ. It was great to chat with you.
You as well. So is there any last thoughts you want to leave our viewers with before we head out?
No, just make sure books are part of your life some way, somehow.
Definitely. All right, net builders, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode.